Okay, we'll just jump right in and get started. Today, I'm presenting on the Ages and Stages questionnaire using the Ages and Stages questionnaire, the ASQ. Before jumping in, a little introduction of myself. My name is Sarah Armconnect. I am an ASQ community coordinator at Help Me Grow Utah. And we partner a lot with the Office of Child Care, and through the Office of Child Care, that is kind of who is funding this project to help put the ASQ into the hands of childcare providers. So we're really excited about that partnership, and want to acknowledge that as we get started. That's who we are and who I'm kind of representing today. So to start off this discussion, I'd love for you to chime in on what is screening and why is it important. And you can do that either in chat or you can unmute. We do have this meeting as a meeting format, so you should be able to jump in and share thoughts as they come up. What do you think? What is screening? Why is this something we're even talking about today?
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Yes,
Screening gives us the opportunity to really identify what the students' needs are, so that we can individualize learning for the students. The screening provides that basic foundation as well as a way to monitor growth across the year.
Thank you. So that was great. I love what you said about it being a way to really individualize things and help really focus on children and what's going on with them and in their development. Did anybody else want to add anything about screening and why it's important? And if not, that is okay. We will.
Yeah, there is a message in the chat that says figuring out a baseline.
I love that. Yes, that is another great reason for doing screening is to figure out where that child is at, like you said, and where we can go from there. Thank you. Okay, I have on this next slide some more ideas about what screening is, why we're even focusing on it, why this is something we're talking about today. Many of you are probably familiar with the Learn the Signs Act Early campaign. It's been a push for a while of if we know early on how a child is doing, and if there are any areas that might need more support, we can help them early on. We can help support them when they need it. And so that, again, helps us to spot those potential delays early on. It's not a diagnosis, but it is a way to find areas that we can support and help that child early on in their development. Another thing that I think is great about screening, that we love about screening, is that it is a great way to share information between parents and providers. It's a good way to do that clearly and quickly. And like I mentioned, screening is different from an assessment. You can't diagnose with a screening, but it's still a great starting point to find where the child's at and to know if they'll need further assessment. As we dive into this discussion, I'd love to. We'll be talking. There's lots of different kinds of screenings. The type that we'll be talking about today is the ASQ, the Ages and Stages questionnaire. And so to kind of introduce this, I'd love to show this video clip about how one child care center uses the ASQ. So we'll all play that video, and then we'll jump back in.
Children look at the world in a way that nobody else can look at it. We sort of forget that as adults. They see things for exactly what they are, and they're not afraid to tell you. As a parent and as a teacher and as a director, I think the early intervention is critical. I was the parent of a young lady who had a learning disability, and early intervention was huge and life-changing for her. We can help children to walk into elementary school feeling confident. We need to offer them those tools to do that, and I think Ages and Stages is one of them. It's easier for teachers to implement in the classroom. Many of the other tests were very, very time-consuming for teachers to use. This one was rather quick and gave a wonderful snapshot of children and their development.
Ages and Stages works because it's a whole team involvement. You're integrating both parents, the student, the teachers, everyone gets involved and is working for the greater good of the child.
It opened a door for parents to be able to communicate with teachers on the same level. They were both looking at the same document.
The teachers and the parents do the same activities at home and at school, and then they come together and meet and talk about the results. I felt very successful with it, using it as a teacher and being able to talk parent to parent with other parents about their child.
They sent home the Ages and Stages questionnaire for the parent to fill out with an information sheet on the front, kind of explaining that we would complete it at home and then the teachers would complete it at school and we would discuss them at the conference.
I love having the parents involved because they really enjoy doing the activities with their child.
And I like that he didn't feel on the spot, like it wasn't a pressure thing. We had fun doing it.
I think Ages and Stages is right for you because it is engaging and it's activity-based, and it gives you a scoring sheet that shows where kids are that's easy to communicate with parents.
It's so amazing to make a difference in children and families' lives. So when we can get early intervention into a child's life, we can make that life-changing impact.
All right. I love sharing that video. I think it gives such a good brief explanation of what the ASQ is and why we are focusing on it with childcare providers, especially. It's a great tool for talking with parents, and I just appreciate what they have to say in that. So moving on, I also love to share this graphic, this picture. I think it depicts something that a lot of you will recognize in your work. When you are working with children, there are a lot of people, they notice different patterns and things, and there are going to be some children you're working with who it's really easy to tell that they're doing great, they're right on track. And there's going to be other children you work with who there are some things that catch your attention, things that might need a little bit more support in certain areas. But then there's that middle group where there's nothing really clear, nothing obvious to draw attention to delays or things like that, but they still might need more support. And the purpose of screening is to be that safety net there to catch those children who might be slipping through cracks, to offer support that we might not be aware was needed without this tool. So that's why we screen. That's why we offer and encourage the screenings to be universal screenings to screen every child. We might not know if there's a child that needs more support. All right, I'd love, again, some more participation and thoughts on this question. So we've talked a little bit about screening, why it's important in general. Why do you think it's important to involve families in the screening process? Why would we want them involved? And again, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Hi.
Hi.
I think it's important to get families involved because when a parent is doing it themselves and being able to make those assessments for themselves, they don't feel really judged. It's not coming from like a place of judgment. It's just coming from, what they're assessing in the moment and seeing in the moment. and being able to cross-reference that with the teacher too is just having a good level of like understanding that we're on the same page with the situation.
Thank you. Thanks, Lucia. I love that. You said they're sharing their experiences with what they've seen, and I think what you said, they won't feel judged, because it can be hard to communicate if you as a teacher maybe are seeing some behaviors that you want to bring up. If the family's not involved, if they haven't been part of that screening process, it might be harder. And like you said, cross-referencing between the two people, what they're seeing, I think that's great. I love what you said about, they're sharing their experiences and being involved in that process. Thank you. And we have some more in the chat also. Kathleen Brown, who is also really involved in this process with the ASQ and SR. I'm really glad you're here, Kathy. Parents know their children better than anyone else. Thank you. Yes, they see things that we don't, and whatever our role is, they see they're in a different environment. It's going to be different, and they are, we want them to be involved and to be their champion. And Jared, thank you. You said parents and teachers are on the same team for supporting children's learning. Yes, children may display different skills at home and in the classroom, so getting two perspectives can be very helpful. Yes, perfect. Thank you. I agree. They're seeing something else, and like you said, we want everyone to be on the same team. That's what everyone's goal really is to help support the child. And if everyone's on the same page, then it's really going to help with that goal. Anyone else have anything they want to share? These are great. Thank you. Okay, here are some more ideas that are a lot just rephrasing what was already said. But one reason we love to have families involved in screening is it's a great way to increase family engagement. We want families to be engaged in this process. Another reason is milestone education. It's amazing how many times we'll be working on a screening or I'll hear a story of a family that was doing a screening and they'll think, oh, I didn't even think to try that with my child yet. That wasn't something that was even on my radar, or something that maybe they could do. So this is a great way for them to celebrate those things, celebrate what their children are doing, what their children are learning. It's also a really good way for, like as was said in the comments, that to see a different perspective from what we're engaging with. They're seeing something else, and we really want to get that full picture of child development. And another reason we want the family on board is if there are interventions needed, any intervention that is introduced is going to be more successful if the family is involved. This is a great way to introduce that. All right. We have in a couple places here some quotes from Help Me Grow parents who have participated in screenings and are sharing, why they like them. And so this one says, they helped me to understand what to expect from my baby and how to encourage his development. It helped me to be more patient with him because I understood better where his development was at. And the reason we share these quotes, we'll have a couple more in the slides, is I think it's really helpful to know that parents get something out of this. This is important to them. That these screenings, they really do help parents to feel more understood and feel more that they know how to help their children. Okay, we are going to do I'd like to do a short game to kind of help us all learn a little bit more about the ASQ. So we have just a few questions and these are items from the ASQ. from the ASQ3. And I put the intervals that the ASQ is on at the top there. And I'd love to hear what you guys think, what age interval this question comes from. So this question is, does your baby say 3 words such as mama, dada, and baba? And a word sound is a sound or sounds your baby says consistently to mean something or someone or something. So from those intervals, those ages, which interval do you think this item comes from? And you can answer, or you can put it in the chat, or you can, just think of it in your head. I'll give you another few seconds to decide. And if you want to share, please do, that'd be great. Six months, okay. About 6 months. Great guess. Okay. So the answer is, it's on a few of, all of these will, actually not all of them, I don't think, but many of them will be on a few different intervals, and this is 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, and 14 months. So that's kind of the age where you start seeing that. We have a few more questions, so hopefully you guys keep engaging with this. I appreciate that. So this question is, without holding on to anything for support, does your child kick a ball by swinging his leg forward? So how old do you think we would expect to see that in a child? I've got 3 to 4 years. Good guess. 14 months. Good guess. Okay, here's the answer. 24 months is the youngest interval it's on, and the oldest interval it's on is the 36-month interval. Jared, you got it. You got that one. Awesome. Okay, another one. Using child-safe scissors, does your child cut a paper in half on a more or less straight line, making the blades go up and down? I'll give you guys a minute to think about that. Okay, we've got a 36-month guess. 48-month guess. Okay, and 48, 54, and 60-month intervals. I think I have a couple more questions, a couple more here. Does your child get a spoon into her mouth right side up so that the food usually doesn't spill? I'm giving you another couple seconds to think about it and decide what age you think that would be on. 24 months. 27 months. And 30 months. Yeah, this one is surprising, I think. It's 18 months is the youngest interval it's on. 18 months, 20 months, and 22 months intervals. And I think this is the last one. Can your child string small items such as beads, macaroni, or pasta wagon wheels onto a string or shoelace? "48 months. 16 months. Okay, we've got a lot of good guesses here. And this one has a lot, a wide spread of where you would see it. 22 months is the youngest and 36 months is the oldest. Oh, okay, this is the last one. Does your child skip using alternating feet? Okay, some good guesses, 54 and 48, 30 months. And this one is the 60-month interval, actually. So this is the oldest one, the only one that it's on. Hopefully, the reason we included this game, added this game, is I think it's super eye-opening to see the individual questions and just what we don't maybe expect children to be capable of at different ages. I know the spoon one is one that when I first learned like how young it was on the interval for, blew my mind. You know, you just wouldn't expect children to be able to maybe feed themselves at that age. And hopefully, you know, if parents are using these screenings, it's helping them to see these things too, and see the things their child is capable of, and help them reach those things. So now we've talked a little bit about it. We're going to dive into specifics of what the ASQ is. Thank you all for playing the game, for engaging. I hope you enjoyed, you know, learning a little bit more about those items. So what is the ASQ? So ASQ stands for Ages and Stages Questionnaire, which is an evidence-based screening tool that promotes parent engagement and early detection of areas of concern for non-typical development. And there are two different types of screening. There's the ASQ3, which is the general development screening, and the ASQ SE2, which is about social emotional development. And both screenings are really great tools. A question that comes up pretty frequently is, what do the 3 and the 2 mean? Those are just the versions they're on. So the ASQ3, it's the third version of the Ages and Stages Questionnaire for the general development, and the ASQ SE2 is the second version of the social emotional development screening. And here is a brief history of you know, the research that's gone into this. These are well-researched tools. They have been studied from the 1970s was when they began looking into that. And the first edition of the ASQ came in 1995, and the ASQ SE2 was added in 2002 with more research just ongoing. They're continuing to do research on it. I keep hearing about an ASQ4 that's going to be on its way, because these are things that are, you know, they're always looking into it, making it more accurate and more representative of the children in the world today. So again, I like including this just to show just how much has gone into these tools. And a brief side-by-side comparison here of the two tools. So the ASQ3 goes over general development, while the ASQ SE2 goes over social emotional development. And items on the ASQ3 are questions about a child's ability to perform activities, while items on the ASQ SE2 are questions about a child's normal behavior. So they're looking at slightly different things. For the ASQ3, there are 5 different sections. It goes over communication, gross motor, fine motor, problem solving, and personal social. And with the ASQ SE2, there are not individual sections like with the ASQ3. It's not split into things, but there are some different areas of social emotional behavior that all combine into the screening, and those areas are self-regulation, compliance, adaptive functioning, autonomy, affect, social communication, and interaction. So those are all the things that kind of go into that social emotional development. Both questionnaires have an overall section, which can be a little bit more open-ended, talk about qualitative questions, or go over things that caregivers might have concerns about. For the ASQ3, well, for both intervals, the youngest interval is, for both screenings, the youngest interval is 2 months, the oldest interval is 60 months. However, they kind of have different windows per screening. So the ages for the ASQ3 go to 0 months to just under 66 months is the oldest you can screen a child with the ASQ3, while for the ASQ SE2, the oldest you can screen a child is just under 72 months. And for the ASQ3, the scores range from concern to monitoring to no concern, which is the high scores. And it's kind of switched for the ASQ SE2, while the low scores are no concern, monitoring, and concern is the high scores. So they're built a little differently. They do a little different things, but they both help with development, help us know and understand the child a little bit better. As I was saying, on that topic, both screenings, the goal is to identify children who could benefit from greater support. And while the focus of the screenings are different, together they really give a full picture of child development. They complement each other. If you know, using one screening helps you know that maybe there is something that you need to look at a little bit more in the child. If you use the other screening in conjunction with it, that can really help pinpoint it a little better. It can help find more of what's going on with that child's development. Um, often you're working with children who are too young to use words to communicate what's going on with them, what might be giving them, what they might be having a hard time with. So we look at nonverbal communication to do that, and using these screenings can really help with that. Help us understand what they are saying. Okay, so this is an example of well, it's not one example, they're examples from two different screenings of the ASQ3. You can see how there are, it's split into different sections. Like on the left one, you see there's a communication section. On the right, you see that there are, fine motor, problem solving. So each of those 5 areas has its own section. And parents, as they're going through the questions, they mark yes, sometimes, or not yet, based on whether the child can complete those items. And as they're going through, and after they turn it in, after they finish it, the provider can go through and score it and go over those questions with the parent and help dig into that a little bit more. Does anybody have any questions about this, about what a screening looks like? And if so, in the resources on the Zoom, I did include at least one example that I checked the links again today, and I'm not sure all of them work, but one of them does. It will take you at least to an example of the ASQ3, so you can really see what that looks like. And this is an example of the ASQ SE2. So the way this one is a little bit different from the ASQ3 and how it's built is the ASQ SE2 doesn't look at activities that a child can or can't do. Instead, it looks at a child's normal behaviors. So there will be questions that instead of you'll saying, yes, my child can do that, or not yet, instead of the answers are often or always, sometimes or rarely or never, just depending on how that, what that normal behavior looks like. And there's also a 4th column you can see on these questionnaire examples, where it says check if this is a concern. And what that does is it just adds a little bit more weight to certain items in the screening to help a provider, as they're going through it, look and say, oh, that's something we maybe want to focus on a little bit more, and maybe something that the caregiver has a question about that we can help answer. So that's how these differ a little bit in how they're completed. Kathy has a comment where you say it's really cool that the questionnaires are age appropriate. Yeah, we talked about how much research has gone into it, and it's really cool how the creators of the ASQ were able to put it together, and thank you for your comment. Okay, we have another game. Now that we've talked about the difference between the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2, I'm going to ask you guys to guess on some of these items. Again, remember, the ASQ3 is general development, the ASQ SE2 is social and emotional development. So I'm going to put an item from one of the screenings on here, and ask you guys to guess which screening it comes from. For the first one, does your child check to make sure you are near when exploring new places, such as a park or a friend's home? I think it's ASQ3 or ASQ SE2. Okay, we've got a couple SE2, we've got ASQ3. This one is the ASQ SE2, and it's funny, as when I was pulling these items from different screenings, there are some overlap where some seem like they could be on either one. So it makes it a little tricky. So hopefully it makes sense though. The next question, Does your baby feed himself a cracker or a cookie? Okay, we've got ASQ3 is one guess. Another ASQ3. And yes, this one is ASQ3. This one's that general development. Next question, does your child settle herself down after exciting activities? Couple ASQ SE2. You? Yeah, this one is ASQ SE2. And does your baby let you know when she is hungry, tired, or uncomfortable? For example, does she fuss or cry? Got a couple of guesses of both ways. And this one does come from an ASQ SE2, but as I've said, there is some overlap where sometimes these things that are on the ASQ SE2 might also be an indication of general development. So it's and I don't think I included any that were specifically on both, but there were some that I found that are on both. So there's some overlap. Does your baby help turn the pages of a book? Lots of ASQ3 guesses, yes, and this one's ASQ3. Does your baby like to be picked up and held? ASQ SE2. And yeah, this one is ASQ SE2. And that was the last of those. Thanks everyone for guessing. As I mentioned a couple times, there are some overlaps, but for the most part, it is kind of, you can see how one question might be more about fine motor skills or about communication skills, whereas the ASQSE2 are about social emotional development. And the thing with that is, though, they do kind of complement each other, right? Social emotional skills have to do with communication skills, and so that they build on each other. They work together. Thanks everyone for doing that in that game. Here is another quote from a parent where she says, "As a parent, I'm always wondering if my kids are on track or if the behaviors they are exhibiting are normal or worrisome. This has been helpful to answer some of my questions and ease my worries." It can be really good to, no matter where the child's at developmentally, it can be good for the parents too, to know what they're looking at, know what to expect. We encourage these screenings for everyone, for every child. Okay. So some of the benefits of using the ASQ, either one for children and families. If we have, more parent engagement, that leads to more activities for child development in the home. And these screenings, as we talked about, we love parent engagement as part of these screenings. It's also a great way to celebrate a child's progress. We talked a little bit about, noticing these things that maybe we didn't know they could do, and it's a great way to help parents to celebrate these milestones that they're seeing. It's also an opportunity to discuss parent concerns, even if the child is screening for typical development, for on-track development. This is still a great opportunity for parents to bring up concerns that they might have, and for you to talk about those things, and to reassure parents if if they have concerns that they haven't been sure about. It's also a great way to educate parents about development, and for children who might need further assessment, this can help start that process earlier on, help target or not help find those areas that might need support and support them in that. It's also a great way to offer referrals for family resources that they might need, and help to predict early on a child's ability to pay attention and socialize and regulate later in life. It really help us learn about that child and about what their needs are. So in addition to having those benefits for families, there are also benefits for early childhood educators, for you in your work. And one of those benefits is maybe if you have a concern about a child that you're not really sure how to bring up, how to approach, is a great way to start a conversation. Help again them be involved in that process, and so you can say, this is what we're seeing, this is what you're seeing. Let's get on the same page with that. Another thing that can be really beneficial is uh, if if we're normalizing screenings, if we are encouraging them to be a universal thing for every child in your program, then that helps keep anyone from being singled out. If child development, if you're concerned about a child's development, and you're not really sure how to approach that with a parent, if screenings are part of your program, part of what you're doing, is a really great way to open that door. Another great reason for great benefit of the ASQ is it can help teachers know what activities might support a child's needs, what areas that they might need that support in, and can help target staff training to children's needs as well. It builds a basis of support for families, and can help direct the support that's given to childcare staff as well. This is a screenshot from the CCQS, the childcare quality system, and that's one of the other benefits for childcare providers in using these screenings, is that it will give you more points on that. If that's something you use in your program, this is a great way to get additional points, is to use the ASQ. It's something, again, that the state has recognized as is really important for child development, and they're so they added it to this system. Okay, so we've talked about screening, we've talked about why that's important, we've talked about the ASQ3 and the ASQ-SE2, how those work and how those can work together. For this next part of the presentation, I'd like to tell you guys about the statewide developmental screening project. It's called Celebrate the Stages, and the goal of this project is to put these tools into the hands of people who are working with children, to the hands of people who have a relationship with children and families, so that it can benefit them. So what that looks like, the goals of this project are to again, to put these screenings into the hands of those who work with parents and families and children, and the reason for that is they would love to have more screenings be done. We've talked a lot about how it's beneficial for children, it's beneficial for families for more screenings to be done. And part of that goal is also, though, to be able to share that data at a level that we can do research, to see how track trends across the state of Utah, see how children are doing, see how child development is doing, and what that looks like kind of at a statewide level. There's going to be permissions involved, right? And what that looks like is the parent would be the first one to see the screening, and they would have to give permission for the provider, which is you guys, to see the screening and store the screening. So they have to give that permission. For the next levels of permission, they don't have to agree to have any data shared. They can say yes or no to this next part. But if they say yes to the second level of permission, then the de-identified data, so it wouldn't be able to be tied back to any child or any family, but the de-identified data would be shared with the Department of Health and Human Services to use for research, to see how kids are doing across the state of Utah. And they're also working on a system called the CHARM system, which would allow authorized users, so anyone who has access to a child's vaccination record, to have access to the screening results also, so everyone can be on the same page, so everyone can work together to support child development. And here are some slides just to show what that looks like for parents as they're filling out those permission forms. This is that first one where if they have to agree to let the provider see the screening in order to continue. But this is the one where they can say yes or no. And if they say yes, it would be shared with the DHHS. And here are some of the reasons why this is even a project that has been, is going on. Would love to be, the state would love to, they're funding all these screenings, right? They're funding all these screenings, and the reason for that is they want to understand how demographics and geographic areas affect childhood development and things like that. And I think someone earlier on said that one of the great things about screenings is it can provide a baseline. And yes, that's part of why they're encouraging these screenings statewide also, is to provide a baseline for children's health, children's mental health across the state of Utah. It's also a great way to prove the impact of interventions and the differences in outcomes for children screened. If we have these screenings and we're sharing the de-identified data, it would be able to see how interventions are playing out for children. And another reason for this project is to minimize duplicated efforts by parents and providers. This is a screenshot from ASQ Online, which for providers who are participating in this program, you're getting access to the ASQ tools. One of those tools is ASQ Online, which is a great tool for keeping track of screenings that have been done and for running reports. And so this is some of the data that is shared with the state. Number of screenings that are used, which types of screenings, and things like that. So for anyone who has an ASQ Online account, your individual data here would look a little different, but you could also be able to pull reports and see things about your program. You could see how screenings are going on that individual level as well. If anyone is curious about what these screenings look like from a parent's point of view, that's what this slide is for, is to give you an opportunity to see that. If you use that QR code, that will go to a Sandbox account. So it's not tied to any, it's tied to me. So it's not a real account. But if you go to that QR code, you can see what it would look like for a family to get started with a screening. And you'll see if you scan that and start going, you'll see where you could enter the child information and the permissions that we talked about for a parent to share with their provider, and also to share the de-identified data with the state. And after that, you'll see the screening for the questionnaire that for the age of the child you put in. So this is just a Sandbox account that you can look at. But if you're interested in wondering what that would look like, what parents would see on ASQ Online, this is what they would see. I'll give you another couple seconds to scan that if you're interested. And we'll move on. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in getting access to the ASQ screening tools, that's my job. That's why I'm here. Is I work with Help Me Grow Utah, and my job as ASQ community coordinator is to help train people on the ASQ, but also help childcare providers get started in using them with your programs. So the first step in getting access to these tools is to meet with me, to set up a meeting, and we will talk about some of these things we talked about in this meeting to make sure that we're on the same page of what that looks like. So that's the first step, and then you would receive ASQ training. We offer free training at Help Me Grow Utah with a couple different methods. So we'll go into more details about that next, I think. Then we'll also create an ASQ implementation plan. We want to make sure you have the tools to succeed as you get started with these screening tools. So we want to make sure that you know what your plan is. You want that how to get started when you're doing these screenings. So that's what the implementation plan is about, to make sure you have a plan and that we can support you in that plan. There is also an enrollment form to fill out, and after those steps, we would be able to deliver your ASQ kits, and we would set up your ASQ Online account. So it's pretty straightforward. These are the steps to get access to the screening. And And the first one again is to meet with me. So I'd be happy, I'd love to meet with anyone who's interested in that. One of those steps I mentioned is receiving ASQ training. And like, as I mentioned, Help Me Grow Utah has a few different training options. We have a couple training options. We have a virtual live training that you can sign up for on our Help Me Grow Utah website, which the link is on the screen there, helpmegrowutah.org/partners. And then we also have, if you are signing up for courses on care about childcare, you can sign up for a course that way as well. With that being said, if you sign up on care about childcare, you'll also have to go in and finish the Zoom registration. So be aware of that. And in addition to the virtual live training, which is what those first two bullet points are referring to, we also have a self-paced webinar training that is free and we offer to anyone inside Utah. So all of these trainings are free. And if you have questions about any of them, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you guys learn more about which option might work best for you if you're interested in that. So then, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to receiving those physical, copies of the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2 and those kits, providers who go through this training process and get started with this Celebrate the Stages initiative will also get access to an ASQ online account. So if you did scan that sandbox account, you'll get your own, not QR code, you'll have to make one if you want one, but we can do that. But you'll get your own link to a specific, to screenings that will come directly to you, directly to your program, so that you can get started with those screenings. So those screenings that are done with that link will come directly to you, directly to your account, and you will be the ones to see that and to get started with that. And as you saw, if you did, fill out, go to that sandbox link, it will allow caregivers to fill out screenings from their phone, to fill it out from wherever they're at, and it also allows you as providers to receive help with scoring them, to see the results pretty immediately instead of having to score it on your own by hand. So that's a really great feature also. I'm happy to answer questions as you're using them as they come up. That's another part of what I do. I love to help questions with that. So if you and that really transitions into this slide. That's my job actually, is to help childcare providers who are interested in the ASQ and who are to get access to the ASQ and to use the ASQ and to answer questions about tech support if you need help with that on ASQ Online, or to if you have questions about what the screening process should look like. So feel free to reach out further down. That's what I'm here for. And if you have questions about referrals, as part of that process, and you have a child that you want to make referrals, but you're not sure what that would look like, that's what Help Me Grow does actually as an organization, is we connect parents to community resources and developmental resources, and we'd be happy to help you make those connections as well. Feel free to reach out to us through through our website, to call, text, or email. We're happy to help. And these are our contacts for this project. My information is at the top there. And I have a coworker who works with Spanish-speaking providers, Amanda Price. So if you know if that's something you're interested in, she's giving a presentation right now as well about this in Spanish. But that's her information, how you can reach her. And we also have Kathleen Brown. She's on this call with us as well. We have her here, her information here as well. She oversees this project from the Office of Child Care side. So these are project contacts there. And I can leave that up for a minute. And I might have gone a little too fast through this presentation, but I think that's all I have for you. But thank you all for coming. I'm happy to stay on throughout the next 10 minutes or so to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, if there are any more questions, please feel free. Otherwise, you have a few more minutes to go to the expo and check out the virtual expo event. But thank you for joining. And yes, if you do have any questions, like Sarah said, she's going to be here for the next few minutes to answer.